of Job is pretty straightforward. Some say that God has a gambling problem. Not quite. Because the adversary, and it's the adversary, it's never associated with the devil, not the red-skinned, horned, pointy-tailed beast from the north, from Gentile country. This is the adversary. This is a member of God's heavenly council who walks to and fro to see how people are doing. He is the prosecuting attorney, you might say, and he's looking for persons of interest. And God says to the adversary, says, hey, take a look at my man Job here. He is really a good man. And the adversary says, yeah, right. As long as you give him lots of children and wealth and health, he's doing fine. Of course he doesn't blame you for anything. Just take it away from him and see what happens. And God says, okay. And he does. The adversary does. And Job is left. No children, no wealth, no health. His wife tells him he has bad breath and that he should curse God and die. Just give it up. But Job knows that there are good things and there are bad things. And should he stop worshiping God just because the bad things happen? We get that term patience of Job. Actually, that comes from James's letter. It's not in the story itself in the Old Testament. The patience of Job, and yet we misinterpret it because the word patience changed on us. The King James Version is the one that uses it, and that was written with 17th century English. And we see patience as gladly enduring, happily struggling. We've got patience. We can get through it. But in the older English, it meant long suffering. And long suffering is what Job had. His friends come over to sit with him through the grief, for that was what he was struggling with, was grief. He lost everything. And it went fine for a while, and then they started talking. You know how friends are. As long as they sit with you, bring you a cup of coffee, deliver some food, it's fine. But then they sit down, they start trying to convince you that, well, you must have sinned for God to punish you this bad. Right. When I was a kid, my mom would take me to bridge club. And that was back in the days when the non-smokers had to go outside. So the room was just filled with smoke. And I would play with the other kids at Mom's feet underneath the table there. And the smoke came down to about table high. And every now and then, a hand would come down through that smoke and whack one of us for no good reason. Well, that's how we feel about God, isn't it? That's kind of the general impression. God's going to get you for that. That's the way we see it. God just there to do it. But, this book of Job is very clear at the very beginning. This is not because Job sinned. Job is a guinea pig. He's part of an experiment. Will this good man, holy man, righteous man, stop his righteousness because everything goes south? I mean, if God is all-powerful, all-knowing, all-loving, how can there be evil in the world? That's a big problem. You probably have a friend someplace who has said, well, I can't believe in a God who causes all the suffering in the world. And that is a philosophical and categorical argument. It keeps God out there somewhere. Perfect God! Separate from this really imperfect world. And if you ever wonder if things are perfect, listen to your spouse. You will be informed of where imperfections show up. We struggle with this, but I think it's a categorical problem. Rabbi Harold Kushner wrote a book about this very problem. It's called When Bad Things Happen to Good People. He didn't say why they happen. He says when bad things happen to good people. And one of his explanations is this. When we do this all good, all powerful, all loving, all knowing God, we are describing a monster. If God is all of these things in a perfect way, then how can it be? Is God all powerful the way we think? Is God a monarch like the Red Queen?
Off with his head! Off with the head! Off with the head! Off with the head! That is interfering! Off with his head! How dare you! Off with his head!
Is that the all-powerful God? Really? What about all-knowing? Do you know what all-knowing means? Can you possibly imagine what all-knowing means? And all-loving. As I recall in the Christian faith, love is more about being on your own cross and a lot less about others being in a guillotine. So what Kushner said was that this God is unreal, impractical, a monster. And so we have those three things. Two out of the three will work. God can be all-knowing, all-loving, not so much all-powerful. Think about it. Or God can be all-powerful, all-knowing, and not loving. It could happen. Or God could be all-powerful, all-loving, but just doesn't know what's going on. But my problem is not with the categories. My problem is with the philosophy itself. Because we are dealing with something called good and evil. And I want to tell you, before we ate the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil through Adam and Eve, we didn't know from good and evil. The world just was. It was only after we ate, or we grow up a little bit, we start looking at the world and we start saying, that's good, and that's not so good. How can we know the difference? Well, Archie Campbell has an explanation of that.
To Grandpa and Strang and Junior there.
Oh, howdy, boys.
They heard you was coming in, so they come down and got a front seat.
Good.
I guess you heard about my terrible misfortune.
Oh.
Yeah, my great-uncle died.
Oh, that's bad.
No, that's good.
How come?
Well, when he died, he left me $50,000.
Oh, that's good.
No, that's bad.
How come?
Well, when the Internal Revenue got through with it, all I had left was $25,000.
Oh, that's bad.
No, that's good.
How come?
Well, I bought me an airplane and learned to fly.
Oh, that's good.
No, that's bad.
How come?
Well, I was flying upside down the other day and I fell out of the darn thing.
Oh, that's bad.
No, that's good.
How come?
Well, I looked down under me and there's a great big old haystack.
That's good.
No, that's bad.
How come?
Well, I got a little closer. I saw a pitchfork aimed right at me.
Oh, that's bad.
No, that's good.
How come?
I missed a pitchfork.
Oh, that's good.
No, that's bad.
How come?
I missed a haystack, too.
That's bad.
No, that's good.
How come?
Well, I bounced around a few minutes. An ambulance came and took me to the hospital.
Oh, that's good.
No, that's bad.
How come?
Well, I was in the hospital there for a while, and I took a turn for the nurse.
That's bad.
No, that's good.
How come?
Well, my wife came in one day and caught me kissing this nurse.
Oh, that's bad.
No, that's good.
How come?
She said if that was the way I was going to act, I could have this pretty nurse. She's going to pack her clothes and go back home to Mama.
That's good.
You're darn right, that's good.
The question to me is not whether or not bad things happen to us. The issue to me is what is the meaning of it all. I personally think that bad times happen, and not that we want them, God forbid, but they do. The question then is, what are you going to do with it? Nobody wants times like these, but the question is, what are you going to do with the time that you have? Are you going to sit there and scratch your sores and curse God, or are you going to, call God on the carpet? It's okay. God's big enough to handle your anger. That's what Job did. He says, God, I have to have an explanation. I have to know why me. And finally, after a lot of wrestling with his friends over whether or not it was his sin, God does show up. Now, in the book, the cosmology is such that God asks, did you span the heavens with your hand? All the way to, did you wrestle the Leviathan to the bottom of the sea? Now, these are things that are all about, myth and fairy tale. But God today could have said something like, do you realize that the universe is over 13 billion light years across? That it has been here for over 13 billion years. Do you know what a billion is? Do you realize that it's so far that at the speed of light, which is the fastest anything can move, as far as we know, when Jesus ascended into heaven 2,000 years ago, he would now be about 10% of the way to the center of our galaxy. Not very far. Do you realize that our galaxy has 100 billion stars? And that we now realize that there are 100 billion galaxies, each with 100 billion stars? Do the math, Job. And Job did. And he fell to his knees. He realized, I am a conscious speck on a fleck of flotsam in a huge universe. And the only hope I have is that God is with me through the struggle. The only hope I have is to find the reason for life. Because here it is. I have it. Now what do I do with it? How do I make life everything it can be with God's love and help? Walt Whitman wrote a poem called "O Me, O Life," and he struggles with this very problem.
O Me, O Life, by Walt Whitman. O me, O life, of the questions of these recurring, of the endless trains of the faithless, of cities filled with the foolish, of myself forever reproaching myself, for who more foolish than I, and who more faithless? Of eyes that vainly crave the light, of the objects mean, of the struggle ever renewed, of the poor results of all, of the plodding and sordid crowds I see around me, of the empty and useless years of the rest, with the rest me intertwined. The question, O me, so sad recurring, what good amid these, O me, O life? Answer, that you are here, that life exists, and identity, that the powerful play goes on, and you may contribute a verse.